Kevin, the tax season is upon us now, so with that, give us a little background, general background about the primary responsibilities of the Department of Revenue Services.
Well, I think most people see us as the tax collector. That's
Right.
what we're trying to change our image as, not being just that. But obviously, we are responsible for $14 billion in tax revenue.
$14 billion.
To the state of Connecticut. Primarily income tax, but corporate income tax, sales and use tax, you name it, we're responsible for it. And so we are responsible for the collection, we're responsible for enforcement, we're responsible for audit as well, and increasingly also part of making policy in the state.
Kevin, just for my own edification, maybe some members of the audience, you said $14 billion of revenue collection, right? The state of Connecticut's budget's $20
Right, so
billion. What's
we're
the
tax
difference?
piece. We're the tax piece. So there are other revenues that the state of Connecticut has that go toward that budget, but we are only the tax piece.
Okay, so in terms of challenges and opportunities, well, I mean, let's frame the discussion by Governor Malloy is new, 1 year I think it is, about 1 year. And as such, like every other governor, he brings in his own team. You're a member of that team. But he's made it very clear, I mean, he likes to use that word, let me make it very clear, that he wants more effectiveness and more efficiency in state government, and he wants it to be service-oriented. So having said that, what are the 2 or 3 or even 4 major challenges that you face?
Well, let me just start by saying, Jim, that one of the reasons when the governor approached me about this and we talked about the job, I frankly said, I don't want to just be the tax collector. It's not my ambition in life. And he said, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for somebody who can reinvent the agency, but also make the agency more part of how we look at the fiscal condition of the state and, frankly, the economic condition of the state. There's never been a relationship between revenue services and economic development. Commissioner Smith and I are working hard to build that.
So the translation of that might be the use of tax policy.
Tax policy is the magic word, 2 words, because I would say that historically there has not been a lot of focus on tax as policy as opposed to tax as just collecting money. It's important to know what the consequences are for a business, for a taxpayer. Whether this is an efficient or an effective way to raise revenue. What does it do in the larger economy? Does it help? Does it hurt? And so that's part of what's one of the biggest changes and challenges we have. I think getting our folks to understand that that there's a new normal that we live with. The department was once over 1,000 people. Just in the time I've been there, we're down another 100 to the point where we're about 680, 640 right now. That's never going to. It's a big change.
Decrease.
And for people who've been there, we have a lot of people who are very long employed, 20, 19, 18 years. Understanding that we're never going to be a 1,000-employee agency again.
Ever again.
We've got to learn how to work with what we have. That means people have to be more flexible. They can't be in their little tax type in their job. They're going to have to learn to work in teams. And this is an exciting time because I think we give people the opportunity to do some interesting things that maybe they didn't get to do before.
Yeah, let's pursue that a little bit, Kevin. You and I know the difference between 1,000 and about 700 is a 1/3 reduction, right? And usually in business, I mean, the term that I would use is if you're not going to backfill those 300 employees and you're sending the signal that it ain't going to happen, you're going to make up the difference in productivity.
That's exactly right, Jim. And that's what we've been doing. We've been doing it, again, by having people work across the agency rather than in their set silos. That is probably our bigger challenge, but we're working at that. We have used technology whenever we can. We've moved much more in the direction of electronic filing, electronic processing, much more in the direction of communicating with us online and by telephone rather than by paper. It's as simple as not sending out all those forms we used to send out years and years ago,
Yes.
and trying to find the transactional costs that we can get out of the system. And that has another benefit, and that is that it allows us to focus more on what's a priority. So if you're going to do audits, which we're going to do, right? And there are thousands of potential audits. So you've got one for $1,000 and you've got one for $10 million. Don't spend a lot of time on that $1,000 one before you spend time on the $10 million one. It's kind of a business decision.
So let's pursue this just a little bit, Kevin, because your agency and what you're going through is being replicated in virtually every agency when it comes to productivity gain, technology gain, et cetera. And it's often interested me, I mean, as a business person myself, that whenever I have taken over a company or tried to change a company or been part of a merger or acquisition, anything like that, Kevin, I have never found that the biggest challenge is technology or people skills or stuff like that. I have always found that the biggest obstacle to change is culture. Now, Kevin, you said it, you got people there. I mean, I'm not saying it in a deprecating sense, who've been there, pick a number, 15, 20, 25, maybe 30 years. So in addition to all this other stuff you've got to do, you've got to change the culture to a service-oriented culture.
And we've talked about, I mean, I just taped this week a rollout that's going to be on a technological rollout to all the people at the department talking about this new vision of the future. And one of them is to talk about what is the culture of our agency, what is the culture of the business of collecting taxes. Those are two different kinds of culture. What I have found is that the people at the agency have a great tradition of stepping up to the new challenges, and then we would not be as successful we are down from 1,000 employees to 600 some if people had not stepped up and taken on new responsibilities relatively willingly.
You know, it seems to me that culturally your biggest challenge has got to be, I can just see you explaining this to your employees, Kevin, that look at, we are the state version of the IRS, essentially, right? And there's no going in love affair between the taxpayer and Kevin. I mean, the going in premise is, you know what, you're taking my money, Kevin, right? So how do you change that, Kevin, to get me to like doing business with you?
Well, I think, first of all, somebody somewhere in time actually had this in mind when they changed the name of the agency from the tax department to the Revenue Services Department.
Right.
And so part of it is getting people to know that we're here to provide a variety of services beyond just collecting your taxes. So we don't want somebody to get in trouble with taxes. We want to keep them out of trouble with taxes. That's another point of view. Call us, contact us. If you're going to miss sending in your trust taxes, which is to say withholding taxes or sales and use tax, don't just skip it. Don't be afraid to call. Call, because it only gets worse when you skip it and ignore it and let it become a problem. There are ways we can work with a business. There are ways we can work with a taxpayer, particularly with businesses. We have no interest in businesses going under because they've accumulated some large tax deficiency. We'd like to find them a way to get out of that. So part of it is the idea that we are here to provide information, the website, the telephone, every technology we can, that people shouldn't be afraid to call us. Look, I understand what you're saying. I sent a congratulatory note to the new president of the University of Connecticut. It was just a short letter, but I sent it on my stationery. And she calls and she says, I want to thank you for the note, but I have to tell you, I was a little afraid to open the envelope. It's from the tax department. I get that.
That's exactly right, yeah.
But part of that is our fault and the IRS's fault and every tax department's fault, because there was this old idea that the only way to get people to pay taxes was to scare them into it, to force them into it. It turns out that's a very expensive way to do business. What you really want to do is maximize the potential for voluntary compliance. And the more people feel, this is what I need to do, I will be in less trouble if I do it, and when I do get in trouble, somebody will be there to work with me, I think that works.
It's interesting, isn't it, Kevin, that the United States of America has the most participating citizenry in taxation. It's unbelievable that 98% of us pay our taxes on time, albeit maybe grudgingly, but we do it. It's amazing.
It is amazing when you look around the world. We have a very clean tax system, too. There are very few instances, as compared to a lot of places in the world, where money disappears off the table between the time you pay it and the time that it gets remitted. And we have a public, so we have to give people confidence that we're being effective and efficient in working, that we're not hostile, that we are user-friendly, we are taxpayer-friendly. Look, at the end of the day, we still have to collect the revenue, that's our job. But it doesn't mean we've got to do it in a way that is scary, but rather see our job as a service agency. This is a theory that's going all over, whether you're police or environmental protection or revenue collection. The research is very strong that creating a culture of compliance is better than creating a culture of fear.